Hi there, I'm Neal Greig and I'm delighted to be showing at the Graystone Gallery, so in the exhibition Palettes and Perspectives. Well, the journey really got going when I had a good art teacher at school, and I had a nice group of contemporaries, and we became, just really quite interested in the journey together, and going to exhibitions, and had some good teachers, and had a teacher who was an artist himself as well. So that was really quite inspiring to begin with. And then after that, I suppose I got into Edinburgh Art College, which was really quite a big thing for me at the time. Oh yes, I'm an academician of the Royal Ulster Academy, so I was delighted about that. It's a wee bit like kind of getting on a team that you wanted to play for, So so in order to qualify that for that, you had to exhibit in the annual exhibition several times, and then you had to get nominated, and then you had to went forward to election after that. And so thankfully I got elected. Now, well, I was particularly interested in painting, I suppose. Well, I suppose it wasn't too big of a deal of a thing in my family, for example. Although my grandfather was a ship's captain, and he used to draw little ships with me, and so there was something there in that. This sort of began the artistic journey, and he gave me bits of canvas to paint on and things like that. Maybe that started the journey. Well, the style has sort of evolved in a way that has responded to solving problems in a way. So, I like to be quite sort of experimental, and sort of, I work on location quite a bit. So it can be quite challenging, but the style, I guess, kind of evolved in response to finding solutions to the problems that arise. So when you work on location and you're trying to get as much information down on the canvas or on the board in this case, so it's like collecting information. So quite analytical, but then quite loose and playful at the same time. But I think in response to making marks and textures and things like that, I find different ways of applying the paint. So I'm not just using brushes, but you might find me in sort of pound shops and places like that, or sort of kitchen departments of shops, and finding dish brushes, or kind of just different kind of ways or tools that I can push the paint around. So for me, the medium of choice really is oil paint, and I like that because there's a kind of an immersion when I like going to these locations, and I like a place that I can resonate with. But I really want to make this a kind of a fully immersive experience, and in a sense, the oil paint, gives me that sort of richness and substance, that I can, and I have this breadth of dialogue that I can call upon, in response. But also there's a kind of a time-based aspect to making the paintings. So I like the oil paint stays quite wet and malleable, and that there's a wet into wet technique with oil paints, and fat over thin, these kind of phrases that you might use. But So oil paint really is good for immersion. Well, when I go to the outside locations, I kind of feel like that's kind of like a sort of a research aspect to that. So I'm kind of looking for like a subject. Now sometimes it's not about painting the objects, it's about investigating the space in a way. So, you know, that sort of sense of exploration about the piece is initially what I want to try and convey, I suppose. And sometimes I would look for the furthest away part of the composition and then draw the composition towards me. So I like that sort of sense of looking through the landscape and exploring the textures and exploring the light and so looking at the spaces, looking at the textures and that sense of exploration. Well, there's I'm quite interested in this concept of creative flow. Okay, so you know there's a kind of this mark making process, and you have to come at it with this sort of intent. So when you go out to a location, you have to get in the right kind of mindset. And you're very resolved to come away with kind of an outcome. So in the first place, that requires a little bit of research and kind of where you want, which composition you want to work with, and often it's when you go out into the landscape, there's so many variables, but you kind of end up looking at one subject, out of many possibilities. So that's kind of an interesting aspect. Well, I love painting, so all those sort of, there's a line of tradition, that artists who I like, particularly say Rembrandt and Turner and people like, the painterly artists, I would say, there's so many of them here, it could be a long list of people there, but I love that Rembrandt's painting. Well, it's been a bit of a journey, and that has changed over the years. And I suppose, as the journey's evolved, then, I think I get more confidence with the materials. It's like maybe a musician playing, I don't know, a violin or something, but, there's, I like to think that there's sort of that confidence that I bring and that creative flow that I'm kind of interested in, so I would say that has sort of influenced the way, you have to be quite sort of adaptable and not too fixed, I suppose. It's a bit like jazz or something like that, that there's possibilities, and I think it becomes very instinctive, and that sort of instinctive quality has kind of developed and been more refined as I've progressed, I think. So I was trying to get this sort of sense of a sort of misty light, and then this lovely colour of the bracken, also gnarly and kind of and also an aspect of this painting that I've got these kind of greeny grey tones, quite muted, and then this sort of explosion of this bright orange, against those grey tones. So it was quite an autumnal kind of day, and just I was really struck by the place, and that sort of sense of resonance, that sort of gets that sort of inspiration happening. So